Hello, welcome back to RC Video Reviews. Today we're going to take a look at OpenTx Companion. As I've put out the tutorial series on the Radiomaster TX16s, I've been stunned at the number of requests I've had to spend some time in OpenTx Companion. So that's what I'm going to do today. OpenTx Companion software is designed to help you get the most out of your OpenTx radio. And it does that by allowing you to read information from the radio and write information to the radio. It also lets you simulate how the radio will behave with a given programming setup. We're going to cover all of that in this video. So there are 7 things that I want to accomplish on the video today. Number 1, we're going to download and install OpenTx Companion. Number 2, we need to create a radio profile. Number 3, we're going to take a little tour of the software. I'm going to show you what all the buttons and knobs on the software do. Number 4, we're going to connect the radio and read our models and settings off of it so you can understand how that function works and how you can back your radio up to your computer. Number 5, we're going to edit a model on the desktop. So that's one of the really cool features of OpenTx Companion is you can actually edit your model configurations right on your computer. Number 6, we're going to run a simulation to show you how those changes work. And then number 7, we're going to write our models and settings back to the radio to show that if we make a change on the desktop, we can push those changes out to the radio. All right, let's get started with step number 1 and download the software. The easiest way to find OpenTx is to Google OpenTx Companion and just hit go. And you'll see the second link here is downloads. And I'm using OpenTx version 2.3.9 for my firmware, so that's the one that I want. Okay, you can see at the bottom of this page that there are 3 versions of Companion, one for Windows, one for Mac, one for Linux. Go ahead and click on the one for your operating system and then click Keep at the bottom. And once the download is complete, we'll launch it. Just click through the options to install the software. And when you get to the end of the install, go ahead and run it. We don't need the browser anymore, so we'll get that out of the way. Since I've already had Companion previously installed, it found my existing TX16 profile, but that's okay. I'm going to create another one so we can work through it together. So if you're prompted to create a radio profile, here's what we're going to do. You want to under profile name, just pick a name. It can be anything you want, anything that'll help you remember it. And we'll call this the RCVR TX16s profile. Under radio type, since I'm working with a Radiomaster TX16s, that's what I'm going to select from the dropdown. And this is important because this tells Companion which firmware is correct for you. While I don't plan on covering how to install a firmware with Companion in this video because I have a dedicated video for that already, I'm going to go ahead and show you that you want to select no heli if you don't fly helicopters, and definitely select Lua. The next thing we want to do is select the SD structure and path. And the reason we want to do that is because Companion allows you to synchronize your SD card on the radio with your computer, and it lets you basically use your computer to back up your radio. We'll go under SD structure path and hit select folder. And I've already got my radio plugged in, and you can see mine showed up as the E drive. So I'm going to select that. And then for the backup folder, I've got a demo folder up here on my quick access that I've created for doing demos. I'm going to add an SD sync folder to my backup folder. And that's where I want my synchronized SD card contents to go. Okay, so you can see I've got the E drive, which is my USB drive for my radio as it's connected to my computer, and my backup folder is on my network attached storage in my demo SD sync folder. It's not a bad idea to enable automatic backup before writing firmware if you want. I'm okay not doing it, but it's an option if you want to use it. And then select your flight mode in here. I'm a mode 2 flyer. but I am AETR. So for my radio configuration, I'll select AETR. You can use whatever works for you. I always append version number to the firmware file name, and that's it. Okay, so once we have our radio profile established and set up the way we want it, let's click on Application Settings and take a look in there. Under Remember 10 most recently used files, that has to do when you do File Open over here on the top left. It'll remember the last 10 radio profile and settings files that you opened in Companion. So 10 is fine. You can choose to show or not show the splash screen. I don't like splash screens, so I'm going to turn that off. If you have multiple radio profiles, you can check this, and Companion will prompt you every time it boots up to select the profile you want to use for that particular session. You can ask Companion to automatically check for firmware updates, not a bad idea. And you can also have it check for updates to Companion. That's the software we're in right now. If you're looking for a feature that's not made available in the stable release chain, go ahead and click on the release candidates or the testing chain, and you'll get access to that firmware. For my airplanes, because I don't like to test things for my production radio, I stick with the stable channel. So that's my recommendation. Now here's something that is really clever, action on new model. So you can either have the radio provide you with the use new model wizard, it can open the model editor directly, or it can just create the model for you. Once you've gotten used to creating models in OpenTx, you're probably going to want to use just create the model or maybe the model editor. I leave mine on use model wizard, so that way when I need to show somebody how the wizard works, it's already available for me. Remove empty model slots when deleting models. That only applies for radios without categories like the Tyrannus. The Radiomaster TX16 does have categories, so this doesn't apply. Okay, automatic backup folder. Let's go in here and create, under our demo folder, let's create an auto backup. And we'll select that. And now whenever the radio makes an automatic backup, that's where it's going to put it. Remember, there's an option to create an automatic backup before writing your firmware. It's not a bad idea if you're new to this. Under splash screens, honestly, I've never fiddled in here too much. You can have user splash images or user in your Companion. I don't know what the difference is. I personally, I just don't fool with that too much. The Google Earth executable, if you've installed Google Earth on your computer, tell OpenTx Companion where it exists. And when you're looking at things like log files that have GPS coordinates, I believe it launches Google Earth and shows you your flight path, which is kind of cool. And then there's some debugging output options. Again, I've never really used these, so I can't speak to them. All right, for the screen capture folder, let's create a new folder. We'll call it screen capture. We'll select that, and that way if you're in the simulator and you perform a screen capture, they'll be saved there. You can also tell it to only save to the clipboard, which is kind of silly. Go ahead and save it to a file. Why not? They're small. And then you can, under the simulator, you can save your switch and pop positions on exit. That might be convenient. I could see how that would be useful. Simulator backlight, this one's grayed out. I don't have an option to use it. And then the joystick, none found. It's because I've got the radio connected in SD card mode right now. And then the simulator volume gain, if you need to turn the simulator volume up, you can do that in here. Okay, so that's all the settings. That's every tab of settings on OpenTx Companion. We've covered them all. We'll hit OK. Okay, number 3 on the list is a quick tour of the software. So let's do that and get that out of the way. Along the top, these buttons generally interact with files and the software itself. These buttons along the left-hand side generally have something to do with the radio. On this top row, you can create a new set of models. You can open previous models that you've opened in the past. We haven't done any on this demo yet, so I don't have anything to open, but that's where you could do it. This is your recent file list. This is the close button, but since we don't have anything open, it's grayed out. If you want to look at logs on your radio, you can click this button and then open log files that you have saved on your SD card, and it will let you look at the telemetry that came in on those log files. This button downloads firmware, so when you click on that, you can say, here's the firmware that I've selected, OpenTx TX16s, Lua, no heli, EN. And now I'm going to check for updates. No updates available at this time. I can also download the firmware anytime, and then we should be able to save that in our demo folder. So if we look in that demo folder, there is the OpenTx 2.3.9 firmware. Not a bad idea to keep a copy of that handy. And then if you want, you can download the SD card contents, which will pop up a window and let you download the correct SD card material for your radio. I've actually covered that in another video, so I'm not going to go through that today. Settings. This basically brings up the radio profile box again. You can see I can edit my radio profile or the application or simulator. That's what we started the video with. This button allows you to choose the radio profile you want to work with. So if you have several different radios, you can add them. You can select the one you want to work with under this icon. This button lets you synchronize your SD card to your computer. So let's take a look at that. Click the button. For local folder, that's the folder on your computer. So I want my demo and my SD sync folder to be used. So hit select there. My radio folder, that's currently the E drive. So I'll select that. And then there are some options in here that allow you to choose how you want synchronization to work. You can have it go both directions to destination folder first. I really wish they would have been clear about destination and source, because up here they use local and radio, and in the sync direction they use destination and source. So which one's the source and which one's the destination? That's the question. I'm going to go ahead and assume that the source is the radio. I'm assuming. I really don't know. And what I would say is that I want the radio to be read first and then backed up to the destination, which is the computer. And then you have some options on what to do if files already exist. You can copy if newer and different, copy if newer only, copy if different only. I'm going to say let's copy if it's newer and different. And then we'll hit start. We can hit show details and it'll show you what it's doing. So synchronizing E, which I consider to be the source, to our demo folder on the network attached storage. The log also shows you which direction we're going. We're going from the E drive to the SD sync folder. So we'll let that run out and we'll come back in just a minute. Okay, the SD card sync is done. Let's take a look in the folder that we specified and see what's going on in there. So here's my demo folder, and here's the SD sync folder that I specified for backups. And look, there's a copy of my SD card. It's a good idea to do that because what it'll do is it'll save your model information, it'll save your radio settings, and it'll save all of your images. The rest of this stuff is easy enough to recreate with the SD card contents, but getting a copy of your models and your images, that's kind of important. You don't want to lose those. Okay, the next button is to check for updates. Since we just downloaded this software, I don't expect there are any, and of course there aren't. And the last button is an About button that shows some information about OpenTx Companion, how you can donate to support them, and when this version was released, June 14th, 2020. Okay, so that's the top row of buttons. The left-hand side, it's really more functional if we go ahead and read the models and settings, so I'm going to do that first, and then I'll go through the buttons. Okay, step number 4 is to connect the radio and read models and settings from the radio. So you can see I've already got my radio connected via a USB cable on the top there. That's why I was able to back up my SD card settings earlier too, by the way. Since I'm already connected, I'm going to hit this button on the left that says read models and settings from radio. And you can see when I do that, I'm instantly populated with a list of models that I already have set up on this radio. Notice in OpenTx Companion, the model that's in bold, that's the model I have selected on the radio. So the Platus PC9 is in bold here in this window right here, and that's the model I've got selected over here on the radio. Okay, after you've read your models and settings from the radio, it's not a bad idea to save it. So let's just click Save As. We'll put it in our demo folder. We'll call it Radio and Models 07/31/2020 at 21:36. And just hit Save. Now you'll also notice, since I've read models into OpenTx Companion, I have a few more buttons up top. The first green plus lets me add a category. The next green plus lets me add a model. The pencil lets me edit a model. The little cross lets me delete a model. Or you can cut, copy. If you have one copied, you can paste, you can insert, and you can duplicate. Or you can move a model to a different category. And you'll also see you have very similar functionality right here in the radial models window as well. Okay, so step number 5, this is one of the big things about it. So I'm going to pick on the Pilatus because I've already got it selected. And I want you to notice I've got a timer set for 5 minutes. So let's just say for argument's sake, I want to change that. I can come into OpenTx Companion and click on the Pilatus and say for my timer, I want that to be, we'll call it 15 minutes. Now, that's it. I've closed the window. I'm going to hit the button over here on the left that says Write Models and Settings to Radio. We'll click that. Let OpenTx clock for a minute. And when it's done, I'm going to disconnect my cable. And I'm going to go into my model settings. Oh, look, you can see it already updated to 15 minutes. See, that's all. That's it. It already read that configuration change that fast. Let's plug back in again. All right, so now that we're plugged in, I'm going to go back into my Pilatus PC9, and I'm going to change that timer back from 15 down. We'll just call it we'll call it 5 minutes. We'll put it back the way I found it, and we'll hit save. We'll hit Write Models and Settings to Radio, and then I'll just unplug it. And when I do, you should see that timer reset back to 5. There it is. Okay, so granted, guys, that's a real simple example. The whole point is to show you how handy it can be to be able to edit your model settings in the computer instead of doing it on the radio. So let's look at the Pilatus again, and I'll show you a couple other quick little things you can do. Let's just say for a second, I've got my throttle cut. That's turned on. Let's say, for example, I have a stabilizer in this plane, and I want to make sure that stabilizer is off. I can put a check under SC, and then I can put the SC in down position. Now whenever I turn that radio on and select this model, I'll get a warning if my SC is not down and if my H is not down. That's what will happen. And notice you can change your radio configuration, what channels you start on, what receiver number you're on, what protocol to use. It's basically everything that you see in the radio you can configure right here. I'm going to show you another example just to show you how to use the simulator. Let's just do a simulation where we say let's pick on the throttle. Let's say if the throttle A is greater than X, if the throttle is greater than, say, 80, that's almost all the way at the top. I'm not going to and that with anything. I'm just going to say if the throttle is greater than 80. And under special functions, I'm going to say, that was logical switch 6. Okay, under special functions, I'm going to look for the logical switch down here on the left, logical switch 6, and remember, it's throttle greater than 80%. I'm going to hit on play track, and the track I want to play is, let's see here.
Speed.
Okay, so I have logical switch 6 set for throttle greater than 80, and the special function is if logical switch illuminates, play the track speed. All right, so if you want to see how your configuration works, you hit the simulate button. Now, this is something I bet a lot of you guys didn't know. It's one of the best features of OpenTx Companion because you can get in here and just play around with stuff without ever touching your radio, and you don't have to worry about blowing up your configurations that you've worked so hard on the radio. I'm going to look at view, and I want my radio outputs, and I'm looking at logical switch 6 right here. You remember that? So I'm looking at that logical switch 6. Now, in order for that to work, I've got to have SH
Throttle disabled.
I got to have SH
Throttle
up,
active.
so my throttle works. And you can see on the left-hand side, watch channel 3 right here. So channel 3 is my throttle, okay? Now I'm going to push that throttle up, and I want it to, once I get up to about 80, we should see logical switch number 6 illuminate. So keep an eye on that.
Speed.
Speed. And once logical switch 6 illuminated or went active, the special function played the track speed.
Speed. Speed. Speed.
There you go. That's how you use the simulator. That was step number 6. Okay, the last thing we want to do is write models and settings to the radio. So I've got my logical 6 switch set to illuminate when the throttle goes above 80. I've got a special function set to play the track speed. So let's go ahead and send that information over to the radio. So I'm just going to click on this button, Write Models and Settings to Radio. You don't get any status updates on what's going on there. I think that's one area they can improve on Companion, is to give you a status update on that. But we'll disconnect the USB so the information can be read in. And then I'm going to press the model configuration button, and we'll look and see if that information is in my special function. Then there it is. See how I've got special function 8, logical switch 6 plays the track speed. And let's take a look and see the logical switch real quick. Logical switch 6, A is greater than X, throttle is greater than 80. So now if I hit that throttle, I'm going to enable I have to turn off my throttle kill. All right, now I'm going to push the throttle up past 80.
Speed.
And there it is.
Speed. Speed.
All right, that's everything I wanted to show you guys tonight. Okay, in this video we showed how to download and install OpenTx Companion, how to create a radio profile. We took a quick little tour of the software. I showed you how to read your radio and model settings off of your radio into OpenTx Companion. We looked at how to edit a model, how to run a simulation, and how to save that information back to your radio. That is the power of OpenTx Companion. And I hope, my real hope here, guys, is it takes the mystery out of it for you. I see so many questions out there where people are confused about it and they say, oh, I've got all this desktop and Companion and firmware and I don't know. It's not a mystery. This is not hard to do. Just watch the video, try it out, read your settings in, and just play with the software. You can't hurt anything. As long as you're careful about what you write to your radio, it doesn't matter what you read in. If you don't like anything that you've done here, close this thing, discard your changes, and read it in again. That's all you've got to do. And if you save a copy of your models and radio settings before you start playing around, you never have to worry about it, because you can always go and hit File, Open, and go back to that original OpenTx file that had your radio and model settings when we got started. See, this is right back to where we were, and if I click on my Platus PC9, that logical switch is going to be gone. It doesn't exist, and the special function is gone too. So I could easily write this back to my radio. In fact, why don't I? I'm going to write it back to my radio. Now all of that mess that I made earlier with the logical switch and the speed track, that's all gone. It's back to where I started. I hope that takes the mystery out of OpenTx Companion for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you're a regular visitor here and you haven't subscribed yet, I would definitely appreciate your subscription. 70% of the views on RC video reviews come from people who don't subscribe. It would just be really nice of you to help out by joining the channel, because that helps the videos that I make get placement. The more subscribers, the more YouTube puts credibility in the material I put out. So join the channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, share with your friends, check out my Amazon affiliate links for consumable RC gear. Don't forget to hit the t-shirt store. That's all I've got for tonight, guys. Take it easy. Now, if you want to test how that works, come down here and hit Simulate. And
Model rates, throttle disabled, 0 volts.
Oh, that was loud. That's because I set that simulator gain up real loud. Okay, so if you want to try this out, let's cut that and do it again. And once I hit logical switch, and once logical switch, that's off. Now I'm going to push that throttle up past 80. Whoops, got to turn the volume on. Okay, that covers everything I wanted to show you. So we covered in Okay, so in this video we covered how to get a copy of OpenTx Companion, how to install it and create your radio profile, how to read your settings in your radio and read it in again. Oh, I've disconnected.